Sightseeing in Our Country's Capitals by Joan Nichols. Capitals at a Glance. Each state capital, or center of government, has its own unique story. Kings and queens once ruled in Honolulu, Hawaii. Paul Revere galloped on horseback through the streets of Boston, Massachusetts. An enormous bat colony makes its home under a bridge in Austin, Texas. While visiting each state's capital, you can tour the Capitol, the building where lawmakers work. You can see where significant events in American history occurred. Each capital has some kind of surprise in store. Depending on which state's capital you visit, you might be a spectator at a chuck wagon race, swim at a popular beach, or tour a roller skating museum. California's capital. Sacramento, the state capital of California, is a good place to start our tour of capitals. Its capital, which was constructed in the 1800s, is a history museum as well as a government office. The historic offices on the first floor have been restored to show how they once looked. Californians call Sacramento the gateway to the gold country. In 1839, a man from Switzerland named John Sutter set up a colony here for Swiss immigrants. He called it New Helvetia, which means New Switzerland. Sutter also set up a trading post called Sutter's Fort. When gold was discovered there in 1848, the rush was on. With hopeful gold miners hurrying to California from all over the world, the colony grew rapidly. Now named Sacramento, the area became a miner's supply post. Buildings from the gold rush days still line the waterfront in the old Sacramento district. At Sutter's Fort Historic Park, the original settlement has been recreated to give visitors an idea of its original appearance. Pony Express riders made Sacramento their final stop. Sacramento was also the final stop on the Transcontinental Railroad, which was completed in the 1800s. You can see actual locomotives from that time period at the California State Railroad Museum. Faraway capitals. The state capitals of Alaska and Hawaii are both a great distance from the United States mainland. To get to either of them, you must travel by plane or ship. In other ways, though, chilly Juneau, Alaska, and warm Honolulu, Hawaii could not be more different from each other. In Juneau, the tramway climbs up the steep wooded mountainside of Mount Roberts and provides a great view of the city with its mix of historic and modern buildings. You can also see Gastineau Channel on the other side. Be sure to visit nearby Mendenhall Glacier. This 1.5-mile wide sheet of ice is an awesome sight. As the glacier slowly retreats, parts of it break off and form icebergs in Mendenhall Lake. The Alaska State Museum in downtown Juneau has exhibits celebrating the city's Inuit and Russian pasts. Look for the statue of a grizzly bear at the state capitol. It is a long flight to Honolulu, Hawaii, more than 2,000 miles south-southwest of San Francisco, California. Honolulu, Hawaii's most important city, is called the Crossroads of the Pacific. Here, planes and ships arrive from and depart to Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States mainland. Kings and queens once ruled in Honolulu. You can visit Iolani Palace, the only royal palace in the United States. Queen Liliuokalani, Hawaii's last royal ruler, lived here until 1893, when the monarchy was overthrown. 5 years later, Hawaii became part of the United States. You can also visit the popular museums and memorials at Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed the United States naval base here, causing the United States to enter World War II. Southwestern capitals. Thousands of years ago, American Indians called the Hohokam lived in a dry area near the Salt River. They built an irrigation system. Phoenix, Arizona is built on the ruins of this ancient Hohokam settlement. The city of Phoenix is named for a mythical bird from Greek and Egyptian mythology. On April 22, 1889, the United States government opened the Oklahoma Territory to settlement. More than 10,000 homesteaders raced across the border to claim land around the railroad tracks and to put up a city of tents. Oil and cattle are important to the history of Oklahoma City. Miners first struck oil here in 1928. Today, the city is in one of the major oil-producing areas in the nation. Oklahoma City has one of the largest cattle markets in the world. Check out the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, with exhibits showcasing cowboys, rodeos, western towns, African American buffalo soldiers, and more. Midwestern capitals. You cannot miss Lincoln, Nebraska. At 400 feet high, its capital, the Tower of the Plains, can be seen for miles. A bronze statue of a farmer sowing grain stands on top of the building, a perfect symbol for this grain-growing state of the Great Plains. The prairie, which once stretched as far as the eye could see, has been mostly turned into farmland. Visit the 9-mile prairie in Lincoln to experience the prairie as it once was. You can also visit the unusual National Museum of Roller Skating, an entire museum devoted to skates and skating. St. Paul, Minnesota is one of the Twin Cities. Minneapolis is the other twin city. The two cities, however, are not identical. St. Paul is smaller and more quiet than its large, bustling twin across the Mississippi River. St. Paul was built on the site of a French-Canadian trading post called Pig's Eye. For many years, St. Paul was the most bustling river port on the upper Mississippi. Abraham Lincoln lived in Springfield, Illinois, before he became president. Many of the sites that he knew have been kept just as they were when he was a resident. You can visit the law office where Lincoln worked, the railroad station where he departed Springfield to become president, and even the tomb where he is buried. You can see his statue, too, and rub its nose for good luck. Many people do this. In fact, the popular statue's nose color has worn away over the years from so much abrasion. Indianapolis is Indiana's capital. It is also the city of wheels, car wheels, that is. Every Memorial Day weekend, during the famous Indianapolis or Indy 500 motor race, cars going as fast as 200 miles per hour speed around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The cars race for a total of 500 miles. Visitors can take a guided test drive around the track. More than 75 racing cars are on display at the Speedway's Hall of Fame. The Brickyard 400 stock car race and the United States National Finals of the International Hot Rod Association are also held in Indianapolis, which is home to many auto racing-related businesses. A great variety of regular cars also run through and around the capital. Indianapolis's 4 interstate highways and 5 United States highways have earned the city the nickname the Crossroads of America. Seen from above, the city of Indianapolis even resembles a wheel. Monument Circle is at the center, and the city's streets fan out from it like spokes. Indianapolis is not just about wheels, of course. It is also identified with professional sports. The city's Children's Museum has 5 stories full of entertaining things to explore. Southeastern capitals. Montgomery, Alabama, was also the Confederacy's first capital during the Civil War. A bronze star on the Capitol steps marks the spot where Jefferson Davis was sworn in as the Confederacy's president. More than 100 years later, civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech on these very same steps. He spoke to 25,000 Americans, both black and white, who had marched from Selma, Alabama, 43 miles away, in support of civil rights. Earlier, in 1955, the famous Montgomery bus boycott began when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white person. The Civil Rights Memorial in Montgomery honors 40 people who died in the historic struggle for civil rights. Maya Lin, the artist who designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., also designed the Civil Rights Memorial. Atlanta, Georgia has one of the world's busiest airports, a good introduction to this modern metropolis. To see the old Atlanta, visitors can go under the city to underground Atlanta. For 50 years, brick streets, gas lights, and old storefronts lay under bridges carrying traffic through the city. Now, a 4-block area of this historic district has been restored. At the Margaret Mitchell House and Museum, visitors can see the home of the author of the popular novel Gone with the Wind, which became a famous movie. The story tells about Atlanta's history during the Civil War, when Union forces, led by General William T. Sherman, burned the city almost to the ground. Northeastern capitals. Annapolis, Maryland sits at the mouth of Chesapeake Bay. This watery capital claims 17 miles of shoreline and is home to the United States Naval Academy. Boats fill its charming city dock. Restaurants serve seafood from the surrounding waters. You can even sightsee around Annapolis in a boat, schooner, or kayak. A statue of Independent Man perches on top of the State House in Providence, Rhode Island, the smallest state in the Union. Roger Williams was Rhode Island's first independent man. He was a minister who did not agree with the ideas of the other ministers in Boston. So he left and started a new colony to the south, Rhode Island. Hartford, Connecticut has been home to famous writers like Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Mark Twain, who wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Boston, the capital city of Massachusetts, has such large amounts of history crowded into a small space that it is difficult to take it all in. To see many of the historical sites, visitors can follow the Freedom Trail to see where events important to the founding of the United States occurred. During the American Revolution, soldiers trained on Boston Common. The Boston Massacre occurred in front of the old State House. The famous silversmith and patriot Paul Revere lived in the house now known as the Paul Revere House. 2 lanterns were lit in the Old North Church to signal that British troops were headed for Concord.